back to edging. I was edging along and I was derailed in how much I thought I was going to get done. Because as you're edging, what you're doing is you're seeing angles you don't normally see and places you don't normally see. So as I approached the part that I made wider, made a new bed for Tracy, we call this Tracy's garden for an extra neighbor, I looked and went, what is all of that? I said, oh no, oh no, oh no. Tracy's a new gardener and she doesn't realize. So as I'm edging, although I didn't have mulch to use for the other edges, I'm going to mulch this edge after I clear it out. And I'm going to put paper down on top because that's all chickweed. Chickweed and dead nettle and creeping speedwell, that's all grass type weeds. And if you look there, one of the reasons they took the juniper out is that they have too many cars, too many drivers now in the family, and they depart the driveway right there and park on the grass up here. So it couldn't be bad, it needed to be lawn, but the lawn didn't take, all the weeds took instead. So I am cleaning up the edge, laying paper down, and then putting mulch to hold the paper down and hide it. And because it's a little windy this time of year, I'm pouring water on the paper to make sure that it doesn't blow away while I put the next section on. I overlap them by half, so that section of paper is half a section over the one before it. And I am smothering, so that's chickweed. And this is where I was working when I looked and I saw flowers all over. I can't
see them.
But they're little light blue flowers just opening up. And so when I got done, I have to leave the spot that's eventually going to be lawn, but I know that will hold it now. It won't, that chickweed that is outside the edge will continue to grow in, but now I have room. I have a buffer zone between it and the plants that I don't want chickweed all in the middle of. So I have a buffer zone between them. So edging this time of year, even if you don't edge, even just to walk around and look at where your priority areas are or should be for in the springtime is a good thing to do. And of course, this meant that I said, Steve, have you got some stuff you can chip up for me because I need some wood chips? He said, yeah, I can, but this is what he found.
You see it?
He's trying to take apart our wood pile to chip things up.
And somebody's been sitting there and bringing in pine cones and fir cones because they were both in here, and eating them and building a nest almost. So
we think it might be the little red squirrel.
He's hopefully.
So he began picking carefully to say, maybe we can maintain the part of the pile that has a living thing in it.
No,
it's fun.
I thought about that, but I ended up just.
And because things are still growing, this is an edge along our pond where I cut back the creeping forget-me-not so that I could clean up the stones and put the heated bird feeder out. And since I cut it back, that's all grown new. That's not hurting plants to grow new this time of year. People say, oh my gosh, I cut it back and now it's growing. I shouldn't have done that. That's okay. Let them grow. They will grow. They'll photosynthesize the whole time that they're growing. They'll stash that away in their roots. If they get killed back, they'll start growing again.
The roots are fine.
Seeing them growing, I said, well, and I'm edging and I'm not finding any ice in the ground. So those two boxwoods that I probably told you about earlier as being they were underneath the eaves.
And too dry.
So they are smaller than the other boxwoods. I dug those both up. It's hard to see because my pictures don't show me that, but there is a square still. They've been in the ground almost 3 years, and the 4-inch pot is still visible. I cut all the roots, so those roots have grown nicely out. The square roots are growing out nicely, but that peat doesn't break down. It still stays there, and if I hadn't cut the roots, would have trapped the roots. I also moved to clematis. This is one of the bush clematis that has been sitting in the back, languishing underneath the bottle brush buckeye, and I moved it out to where it could have its own support. Look at those roots, aren't they great?
Yeah.
I love clematis. I'm going to spread those out across a mound of soil, tuck them in, put some water on them. No reason that you can't do that.
Yeah.
And while I was doing that, I had to pull the bells of Ireland out, which is when I got the prickers in my finger, and was one of the reasons that I put in because I think the neighbor said to me, well, what are you talking about? You're going to put glue on your fingers. I said, well, I've got prickers in my fingers. I'm going to put glue on and let it dry and then peel it off. And that's a pretty good job of pulling the pricker. Yeah, I noticed that this picture shows the last pricker that I got. That one was from a barberry.
You might have had one over here too on your thing.
Yeah, it's kind of a constant thing, getting stuff in my fingers. Okay, so what questions are there? Oh, look, you got suet right there and a little suet ball.
Yeah.
We have a question from Suzanne about how long will it take to smother that chickweed?
Well, chickweed and speedwell, the weeds that were in there are cold season weeds. So they germinate and grow rapidly now. And in that same period next spring, when it's in between winter and spring. So if I keep that newspaper on top of them, what's underneath the newspaper will be dead by the time I'm out there to garden next spring. If I don't cover it, it will be 3 times as big because it will just keep growing and spreading. It's a mat forming plant that goes in all directions. They kill a lot more quickly than grass does because grass can escape by creeping underground. Chickweed only creeps above the ground. So if I can cover all of its leaves, I can kill that plant that's under the paper.
And so that could be sort of less than a full growing season for the smother, that by next early summer, you'd be good to go.
Oh, yeah, yeah. By the
Great.
time we're out to plant our annuals or whatever, anything like that, any of those winter season weeds will be dead. Yeah, the time to get winter season weeds is in the winter season. Otherwise, again, as Michelle was saying, the bees are coming back to her hives carrying pollen, and she's wondering where it's coming from. And I was finding flowers opening on those all over the place, and the bees know they're there.
Gretchen is asking if the thistle seed has gone bad. I don't know if she's referring to the picture or someone had mentioning that thistle has been popular. Oh yeah, she had mentioned that she hasn't seen thistle as popular seed lately.
The mix that I get with the thistle in it isn't just straight thistle. It's got other it's got sunflower hearts and a millet, I think.
Millet.
Yeah. Anyway, that one is not as popular as the sunflower hearts. The sunflower hearts are just providing too much more. The thistle, the little thistle you see, they have to work it. They have to break it. And that's why there's so many.
But the finches do like that.
Yeah, they do like this, and it's nice to have it out there for them. But
it is not Canada thistle. That is a thistle called Niger. It's an annual for us. It's not going to create a weed problem other than the kind of problem that you get from sunflower seed.
The shells.
You get seeds coming up, but they're not going to perennialize. They're not going to be around for a long time. And we've been telling people this year that we realize that the sunflowers that we let some of them come up. If they seem like they're in a good place, we'll let a sunflower come up because it's pretty to look at. We're letting more of them come up in some areas now and letting them stay because we've realized that the groundhogs and the deer and the rabbits go for the sunflowers as they're coming up. Yep. Good, let them eat the sunflowers rather than
we had sunflowers along the drive and they were getting munched off every new leaf.
Yeah, it's funny. It come out in the morning and that sunflower that had leaves yesterday afternoon has no leaves.
That and our echinacea, but the echinacea turned out to be good.
Yeah. So there's
the wren.
And Therese has a hand up. That's a great shot.
It's do all wrens always look pissed off? Because they just do. They have that grumpy look to them, and they walk around scolding all the time. Go ahead, Therese.
Hi, just it's a little off topic, but back to that orchid tree. I just wanted to get a quick clarification. You mentioned perhaps taking a couple of years to get those side branches shortened so that they're physically lower than that top leader that I chose. I was wondering if you meant to take just like one branch back shorter at one or two.
The leader has to be, if you want to establish a new leader, especially on a plant that's got a tendency to want to spread out rather than up, then you're going to have to shorten all the branches except the leader to make sure that the leader remains tall and doesn't have anything, even when the wind blows it, popping up higher than it is. You could also take one of those side branches and turn it up and tell yourself that someday I won't notice the bend in the trunk. You could use one of the tall branches as a leader. Yeah, getting a new leader.
Oh, really? So you could tie that up?
Yeah, you could take
I'm sorry, my internet.
Yeah, you could take the uppermost
keeps going
horizontal branch and bend it upward and tie it. Use something so that you're looping around it and not constricting it, and hold it in an upright position and make it be a leader. Someday your trunk will go up and then have a bend in it, but you probably won't notice that as it gets thicker. As the
okay,
gets thicker.
So in the ones that I am going to trim back. So you had mentioned just taking a couple of years to do that. So, I wasn't sure, do I only take them, because they grew 5 feet in 10 months,
This
like
is why-
5 of them.
This is why we like to go to the tropics, is to watch things grow like
Yes.
crazy and then run like
It's am-
heck away from them.
It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
So,
So you're gonna
should
cut
I
it back, you're gonna cut a 5-foot branch back to have, we're having only 4 leaves. So this 5-foot branch,
Okay.
you're gonna cut 4 feet off of it, and you might have to do that 2 years in a row in order to give the leader time to get up and
I
start growing.
see. I see. Okay. Thank you so much, Janet, for the clarification. Appreciate it.
Sure, and I do notice in the chat that Michelle says, by the way, sunflower seeds are allelopathic, which means that sunflower hulls especially have in them a chemical that discourages the growth of other things. It's one of the reasons that grass doesn't grow well
There's
underneath.
nothing underneath the bird feeders.
But also the plants themselves, the sunflower plants, their root system is allelopathic. And that's why I used to say, oh, death to sunflowers. Now I leave them in places where I can afford them, discouraging other plants. Hello, chickadee, black-capped chickadee. And our downy woodpecker. Steve can tell the difference between downy and woody and wolf, downy and hairy, downy and hairy woodpeckers.
Well, Harry's are much bigger.
But I have to see them together to say, oh yes, that one is
Yeah,
bigger.
happens it.
So that's all we've got for in our garden today. And we're hoping that that's all you've got, although we'll have other time for questions as we go along here.